When the world of Korean entertainment thought it had already seen every twist and turn in the extraordinary tale of Song Joong-ki and Song Hye-kyo, a revelation surfaced that shook fans, critics, and even the most casual followers of K-drama history. It was not a scandal or a controversy this time, but rather a deeply human and profoundly emotional confession, Song Joong-ki's words about Song Hye-kyo's pregnancy. The moment the confession reached the public, waves of emotions rippled across continents, reigniting memories of one of the most legendary love stories in the industry, a story once thought to have ended, only to be resurrected in the most unexpected way. Song Joong-ki has always been admired for his polished composure, his refined elegance in interviews, and his almost calculated charm. He rarely revealed more than what was necessary, keeping his private life sealed in an invisible vault guarded from prying eyes. That is why, when he chose to speak candidly about a chapter of his life that fans believed was long closed, it was not just surprising, it was earth-shattering. His confession did not come during a glitzy press conference or through a cold, written statement released by an agency. Instead, it came through his trembling voice, heavy pauses, and words that carried the weight of an untold story. According to insiders who were present, Song Joong-ki's confession began with a recollection of the days when the world knew him and Song Hye-kyo as the Song couple, the dazzling duo who not only lit up screens worldwide with descendants of the sun, but also took their on-screen chemistry into reality. Theirs was a romance that seemed scripted by the heavens, a fairy tale that unfolded before millions of adoring eyes. But as with many love stories in the blinding spotlight, theirs crumbled too soon, and the announcement of their divorce years ago shattered hearts across the globe. Fans mourned as if they themselves had lost something deeply personal. But the human heart is a complex terrain. What was never revealed until recently was that during their time together, a secret remained hidden, known only to the two stars and a handful of trusted confidants. Song Joong-ki's confession unveiled that Song Hye-kyo had once been pregnant during the height of their marriage. The words left even seasoned journalists stunned. It was not just a revelation but an emotional earthquake that unraveled years of speculation, unanswered questions, and unspoken sorrow. His voice reportedly faltered when he admitted how he felt when he first learned of the pregnancy. There was no mask of celebrity in that moment, only the raw, unfiltered emotions of a man whose dreams of fatherhood had suddenly become tangible. He described it as the happiest moment of his life, a moment when he envisioned a future filled with laughter, warmth, and the tiny footsteps of a child who would embody the love he and Song Hye-kyo shared. Fans could only imagine the joy in his eyes, the trembling of his hands, and the overwhelming rush of hope that must have flooded him. But as with so many bittersweet tales, joy was shadowed by tragedy. Song Joong-ki confessed that the pregnancy never came to fruition. The couple faced a heartbreaking loss that they kept hidden from the public. Behind the glamour of red carpets and the dazzling smiles they wore for fans, they were quietly grieving a loss so profound that it tested the very core of their relationship. Suddenly, the world began to see the Song couple not as untouchable stars, but as fragile human beings who carried the same burdens, heartbreaks, and unfulfilled dreams as everyone else. This confession opened a floodgate of emotions. Fans who once criticized their separation found themselves holding back tears, realizing that the two had endured a chapter far heavier than anyone knew. Social media exploded with messages of support, sympathy, and reflection. Words like strength, healing, and love trended alongside their names. For many, this revelation redefined their understanding of the couple's history, reframing what had once been dismissed as another failed celebrity marriage into something more profound and layered. Song Joong-ki, never one for public displays of vulnerability, admitted that the memory of that lost child lingered with him for years. He carried it silently, sometimes as a source of strength, other times as an unbearable weight. In his confession, he said that even after their marriage ended, he never stopped thinking about what could have been, the child who would have tied them forever, the family that almost was, and the bittersweet reminder of love that once burned brightly but was extinguished before its time. His words were not bitter, Nor were they regretful. Instead, they were imbued with a quiet reverence, a tribute to a chapter of life that, though painful, was still precious to him. Fans found themselves drawn not only to the tragedy of his story, but also to the maturity and grace with which he spoke. In an industry where bitterness often follows breakups, Song Joong-ki chose to honor the memory of that time with tenderness. His confession was not about rekindling romance or stirring drama. It was about truth, about peeling back the glittering facade to reveal the vulnerable humanity beneath. As his words spread across media outlets, many began to revisit Song Hye-kyo's past interviews, gestures, and silences, seeing them now through a different lens. Her quiet demeanor during the divorce, her choice to remain dignified, her decision to shield her private life, all began to make sense. She, too, had been carrying a secret that was far heavier than fans could have imagined. The woman who always embodied elegance on and off screen was now remembered as someone who endured pain with immeasurable strength. The confession not only reshaped the narrative of the Song couple, but also stirred broader conversations about the expectations placed on celebrities. Fans and commentators alike began to reflect on how stars are often forced to smile through heartbreak, hide their deepest struggles, and live under the scrutiny of millions. Song Joong-ki's vulnerability became a mirror for many, reminding the world that behind fame and fortune lies the same fragility, the same battles, and the same longing for love and family. Perhaps what made this revelation so powerful was not only the story itself, but the timing. In recent years, Song Joong-ki has moved forward in his personal life, while Song Hye-kyo has continued to flourish in her career, gracefully commanding the spotlight in dramas that continue to win hearts globally. They are no longer the couple they once were, but this confession reminded everyone that their story cannot simply be dismissed as past history. It remains an indelible part of who they are, shaping their paths and the way the world perceives them. In the wake of his confession, fan communities reignited with discussions that blended nostalgia, grief, and compassion. Videos and edits of the couple resurfaced online, paired with heartfelt captions and emotional tributes. People who had once moved on from the Song couple found themselves pulled back into the tide of emotions, not to relive old fantasies, but to honor the truth that was finally laid bare. For Song Joong-ki, the confession was not just a revelation but also a release. By sharing his truth, he allowed himself to breathe freely, unburdened by a secret that had weighed heavily on his heart for years. When the world of Korean entertainment thought it had already seen the brightest stars and turn in the extraordinary tale are Song Joong-ki and Song Hye-kyo, a revelation surfaced that shook fans and the courage to confess, and even the most casual followers of K-drama history. The emotions stirred by this revelation or a controversy this time. They will linger in the minds of fans who now see the Song story confession not as one that ended in tragedy, words about Song Hye-kyo's pregnancy, though cut short. The moment the confession reached the public, and waves of emotions rippled across continents. Their love may no longer exist in the memories of one of the most legendary love stories to shape their legacies. A story once thought to have ended. Sometimes the most only to be resurrected are the ones that leave us with tears, questions, Song Joong-ki has always been admired for his polished composure, and so his refined elegance in interviews, heartfelt confession about Song Hye-kyo's pregnancy, he rarely revealed more than what was necessary. It has rewritten the narrative of their love, an invisible vault turning what was once seen as a failed marriage into a poignant when he chose to speak candidly about a chapter of his life, it has given fans not closure but understanding. It was not just surprising. It has reminded us that it was earth-shattering in all its forms. His confession did not come during a glitzy press conference, joyous or sorrowful. Remains the statement released by an story of all. Instead, the echoes of Song Joong-ki's confession have not only stirred emotions, but have also carried the weight and the media to reflect on the fragile according to insiders who were present. Fame, Song Joong-ki's confession began with a world where stories often end abruptly and memories are quickly replaced by newer headlines. The dazzling revelation has proven that some truths worldwide with descendants of so deeply into the fabric of our on-screen chemistry never truly fade away. Theirs was a romance that seemed scripted by the heavens. Fans thought a fairy tale that unfolded before millions of adoring eyes.
More than ever.
But as with many love stories in the blinding spotlight,
one that
there's
still
lingers
lingers
in the air,
and the
hauntingly
announcement
beautiful
of their
in
divorce
its
years ago
incompleteness.
shattered hearts.
The depth of
across
his
the globe.
honesty has
Fans
led
mourned
many to
as if they
reconsider
themselves had
what it
lost
means
to
something
love
deeply
under the
personal.
spotlight.
But
To
the
think
human
of
heart
two people
is a complex
adored
terrain.
and idolized
What was
across
never
the globe,
revealed until
carrying
recently
a hidden
was that
grief
during their
that
time
never made
together,
it to the tabloids
a secret
is a stark
remained
reminder
hidden,
that
known
celebrity
only
lives
to the
are not
two
defined by
stars
the
and
scripts
a
they
handful
follow
of
or the
trusted
roles they
confidants.
play, but by the
Song
private battles
Joong-ki's
they fight in
confession unveiled
silence.
that Song
For
Hye-kyo
Song
had
Joong-ki,
once been pregnant
choosing
during
to
the height
speak
of
now,
their marriage.
after years
The
of
words
silence,
left
shows
even
not
seasoned
weakness,
journalists
but courage.
stunned.
It
It
was
was not just a
reclaiming
revelation,
his
but
humanity,
an emotional
of reminding
earthquake
the world
that
that
unraveled
behind
years of
every
speculation,
carefully curated
unanswered
public image
questions,
lies a story
and
that is
unspoken
raw,
sorrow.
unpolished,
His voice
and
reportedly
deeply
faltered
real.
when he admitted
The poignancy
how he
of
felt
his
when he first
confession
learned of the
also
pregnancy.
changes how the
There
world
was
views
no mask
Song
of
Hye-kyo.
celebrity in that moment.
Fans who once
Only the
dissected her
raw,
silence, her
unfiltered
distant
aura,
emotions of a
and
man
her
whose
careful
dreams
avoidance
of fatherhood
personal questions
had suddenly
can now
become
see her
tangible.
through a more empathetic
He described it
lens.
as the happiest
She
moment
wasn't
of his
attached.
life. A
She was
moment when he
dignified.
envisioned a future
She
filled
wasn't
with
cold.
laughter,
She was
warmth,
protective
and
of her
the tiny
pain.
footsteps
And in
of
her
a child
silence,
who would
she
embody the
carried a
love
story
he
that
and only
Song
those
Hye-kyo
closest
shared.
to her knew. Fans could
Song
only
Joong-ki's
imagine the
confession
joy in his eyes,
has
now given
the
that
trembling
silence
of his
a voice,
hands,
and the
transforming
overwhelming
it into
rush
a
of
symbol
hope
that
that
must have
quiet
flooded
resilience.
But as
Together,
with so many
their
bittersweet
story
tales,
becomes more
joy
than
was
just a
shadowed
love
by
that
tragedy.
ended. It
Song
becomes a
Joong-ki
testament to the
confessed that the
struggles they
pregnancy
endured,
never came to
the
fruition.
love they shared,
The couple
and
faced
the
a
lessons
heartbreaking
that linger.
loss that they kept
Perhaps
hidden
what makes
from the
this
public.
revelation
Behind
so
the glamour
powerful
of red
is that it
carpets and the
connects
dazzling
with something
smiles they
universal.
wore for fans.
It is not just
They
the
were
story
quietly
of two
grieving
stars.
a loss so
It is the
profound
story
that
of
it
every
tested the
person
very
who has
core
ever
of their
dreamed of a
relationship.
future only
Suddenly,
to watch it dissolve.
the world began
It
to
is the
see the
story
Song
of
couple
every
not
couple
as
who has held
untouchable
joy in their
stars,
hands,
but as
and then
fragile
lost
human
it
beings
before they
who
could
carried
fully
the
embrace
same
it.
burdens.
It is the
heartbreaks,
story of
and
every heart
unfulfilled
that has
dreams
been broken
as
but
everyone
still
else.
remembers the beauty
This
of what
confession
once was.
opened a
And through this
floodgate
universal
of
thread,
emotions.
Song
Fans who once
Joong-ki and
criticized
Song
their
Hye-kyo
separation
have
found
once
themselves
again
holding back
united
tears,
millions of people,
realizing that the
not with the
two
drama
had
endured a
on-screen,
chapter
but with
far
the
heavier
real-life
than
drama of their
anyone knew.
humanity.
Social
As
media
fans revisit their
exploded
past
with messages
interviews,
of support,
red carpet appearances,
sympathy,
and
the
reflection.
unforgettable
Words
behind-the-scenes
like
moments
strength,
of descendants
healing,
of the sun,
and love
everything
trended
feels different
alongside
now.
their names.
The smiles
For
seem
many,
softer.
this revelation
glances linger
redefined their
longer,
understanding
and the
of the couple's
chemistry that
history,
once
captivated the
reframing
world
what had
appears
once been
even
dismissed
more
as
genuine.
another
failed
It is
celebrity
as though the
marriage
truth
into
of
their
something
shared
more
experience
profound
has
and
breathed
breathed new life
Song
into their
Joong-ki,
story,
never one for
transforming
public
nostalgia
displays of
into
vulnerability,
reverence. Admitted
what was
that the
once
memory of
dismissed
that
as
lost
fleeting
child
is now
lingered with him for
immortalized as
years.
profound.
He carried
The
it
confession
silently,
has also
sometimes
sparked
as a source of
conversations about
strength.
healing.
Other
Fans
times
wonder
as
if
an
this release
unbearable
of
weight.
truth was
In his
Joong-ki's way
confession,
of finding
he
closure.
said that even
of
after their
finally
marriage
allowing
ended,
himself to
he
let
never
go of
stopped
the burden
thinking about
he
what could have
carried
been
for so long.
the child who
And
would
yet,
have tied them forever.
one cannot help but
the
feel
family
that
that
some
almost
stories
was,
never
and the
truly
bittersweet
end.
reminder
They
of
remain
love
with
that once
us,
burned brightly,
etched into
but
the
was
quiet
extinguished
corners of our
before its
souls,
time.
His
Influencing
words were
who
not
we
bitter,
become,
nor
and
were
how
they
we love
regretful.
again.
Instead,
Perhaps that is the
they were
greatest
imbued
gift
with
this
a
confession
quiet
has
reverence,
given. Not
a
just
tribute
into
to
a
a
chapter
chapter
of life that,
but a
though
reminder
painful,
to every one of
was
us that
still
healing
precious
is
to
not
him.
about forgetting, but
Fans
about
found
honoring
themselves
the past
drawn not
and
only
moving
to the
forward
tragedy
with
of his
grace.
story, in the
but
grand
also
scheme
to
of
the
their
maturity
careers,
and grace
both Song
with which he
Joong-ki
spoke.
and Song
In an
Hye-kyo
industry where
continued to
bitterness
flourish.
often follows
They
breakups,
command screens,
Song
break
Joong-ki
records,
chose
and
to honor the
stand
memory
tall as some
of
of
that
Korea's
time with
most
tenderness.
admired figures.
His confession
Yet
was
now,
not about
more than
rekindling
ever,
romance
they are
or stirring
remembered
drama.
not only for
It
their
was about
achievements,
truth, but for
about
their
peeling
humanity.
back the glittering
Their legacy
facade
is
to
no
reveal
longer
the
defined
vulnerable
solely
humanity
by the
beneath.
marriage that ended,
As his
but
words
by the
spread
love
across
that
media
existed.
outlets, the grief they
Many
endured,
began to revisit
and the
Song
courage it
Hye-kyo
took
to
to
finally share the
interviews,
truth,
gestures,
and perhaps this is where we,
seeing them now
as
through a
fans,
different
come
lens.
in. Stories
Her
like
quiet
this
demeanor
deserve
during the
not
divorce,
just to be consumed
her choice
and
to remain
forgotten,
dignified,
but to be remembered.
her decision to
discussed
shield her
and
private
carried
life.
forward.
They
All
remind
began
us
to
why
make
we fell in
sense.
love with Korean
She,
dramas
cameras in the first place,
had been
not
carrying
just for
a
the
secret
romance,
that was
the plot
far
twists,
heavier than
or the
fans
beautiful
could have
cinematography,
imagined.
but for
The
the way
woman
they
who mirror
always
real life,
embodied elegance,
the way they
on and
exposed
off
the raw
screen, was
emotions
now
we all
remembered as
understand,
someone who endured
and the way they
pain
bring us
with
together in
immeasurable
shared
strength.
tears and
The
laughter.
confession not
At
only
midnight in
reshaped
Seoul,
the narrative
we
of the
believe
Song
in keeping
couple,
these stories
but also
alive.
stirred broader
Our
conversations
channel is
about
not
the
just a space
expectations
for
placed
updates
on
or
celebrities.
gossip. It is a
Fans and
sanctuary
commentators
for the
alike
emotions,
began to
memories,
reflect on how
and
stars are
truths that
often
shape
forced
the
to smile
K-drama
through
universe.
heartbreak.
It is
Hide
where
their
we
deepest
revisit the
struggles
most
and live
unforgettable
under the
moments,
scrutiny of
uncover the
millions.
hidden stories
Song
behind the
Joong-Ki's
stars,
vulnerability
and
became
dive
a mirror
deep
for
into
many,
the narratives that
reminding the
others
world
only
that
skim.
behind fame
Song
and fortune
Joong-Ki's
lies the
heartfelt
same
confession
fragility.
about Song
The
Hye-kyo
same
is
battles
not just
and the
news.
same
It
longing
is
for
history,
love
a
and
piece
family.
of the emotional puzzle
Perhaps what
that
made
has
this
connected
revelation
fans around
so
the world
powerful
for
was
nearly
not
a decade.
only the story itself,
So, if your
but the
heart
timing.
trembled when you
In
heard his
recent
words,
years,
if your
Song
eyes
Joong-ki
watered as
has
you
moved
imagined the
forward in
love
his personal
and the
life,
loss they
while
endured,
Song
then
Hye-kyo
you
has
belong with
continued to
us.
flourish in her
At
career,
Midnight in Seoul,
gracefully commanding
we do
the
not just tell
spotlight in
dramas that
continue
continue
to win
we
hearts
breathe
globally.
them.
We
They
let
are
them
no
linger
longer the
in
couple
our
they once
souls
were.
long after
But
the
this
headlines
confession
fade.
reminded everyone
This is
that
our
their
call to
story
you.
cannot
Join
simply be
us,
dismissed
subscribe,
as past
and
history.
become part of a
It
family
remains
that
an
celebrates
indelible part
not
of who
just
they
the
are,
stars, but
shaping
the
their
humanity
paths
behind
and
them.
the way the world
Let us walk
perceives
together
them.
through the
In
alleys
the wake
of
of his
Seoul at
confession,
midnight, where the
fan
brightest
communities
lights cast the
reignited with
deepest
discussions
shadows,
that blended
and where the most
nostalgia,
beautiful stories
grief, are often
and
the most
compassion.
heartbreaking.
Videos
Let us
and
revisit
edits
the
of
legends,
the couple resurfaced
uncover the
online,
secrets,
paired
and
with
keep the
heartfelt
emotions
captions
alive.
and emotional
Because at
tributes.
Midnight in Seoul,
People who had once
every
moved on
heartbeat
from the
matters.
Song couple
Every
found
tear has a
themselves
story,
pulled back into
and
the tide
every
of emotions.
confession deserves
Not
to be
to
heard.
relive old
Song
fantasies,
Joong-ki's
but to honor
revelation
the
has
truth that
stirred
was
the world,
finally laid
but
bare.
the echoes will
For
last
Song
longer than the
Joong-ki,
headlines. The confession
They
was
will live
not just
on
a
in the
revelation,
hearts of
but
fans,
also a release.
in the whispered
By
conversations
sharing
of
his
those
truth,
who still
he
believe
allowed
in the
himself
magic
to
of
breathe
love,
freely,
and in the
unburdened
stories
by
we
a
choose to
secret
tell
that had weighed
and
heavily
retell.
on his heart for
Let's
years.
not let this moment fade into silence. Let us honor it, remember it, and carry it with us. Together, at Midnight in Seoul, we can ensure that the stories that move us most will never be forgotten.